Hello everybody. Hope all of you are doing well. So today I would like to begin the video with a special quote by Tom Stoppard. He says, "I still believe that if your aim is to change the world, journalism is a more immediate short-term weapon." We all agree with him, don't we? So with this, now we shall start with Unit 3 of Block 1, that is, Theories of Mass Communication. In this unit, we shall go through some major theories of mass communication which will enable you to understand the relationship between media and the society in which we live in. We will also go through the implications they have on media messages in personal and cultural context. And also we would be studying about its impact on society equations. Why study theories? You usually begin the day in the morning with a cup of the best and most refreshing green tea in the world, or a glass of milk, which is the only pure brand that makes your bones strong. The morning newspaper has so many colorful segments shouting for attention, and as it is time for breakfast, the best bread in town makes your morning complete, readying you to go. Then as you travel to your college or workplace, the larger-than-life hoardings look at you trying to impress why the product or service they are highlighting should be your preferred choice over others. The FM radio plugged in your ears tells you about the grand sale on garments, holidays, restaurants, and shopping for festivals. In between it also informs you on news, both national and local, mostly sensational or commercial. Then as you approach the workplace or college, you try to put things in order by recapitulating the tasks set for the day. These are only the first few morning hours and you're already bombarded with seamless media messages, the subtle effect of which are not simple for human mind to gauge. So how do you know what to do? Whether to believe such media messages or refrain from it? And if you decide to believe, how much should you believe? The choice again is to be or not to be. Media messages play games with the human mind, challenge our intellect, try to influence our behavior in favor of or against something or someone, and even tell us what choices to make. And they do all this within the realm of our personal, cultural, and social systems. Classification of theories. Mass communication theories are classified in various ways. This is because theories, or the way social processes are explained, keep changing or advancing depending on technological, political, and social factors. Most mass media theorists classify theories based on eras of development of mass media. And rightly so, because the way media operated in society and the importance they held from time to time changed with the change in technology. So while theories are generally classified as those of the era of mass society, the era of scientific perspective, the era of limited effects, and the era of cultural theory, to facilitate greater understanding, we classify them as sociological, psychological, critical, and cultural theories and media society theories. Sociological theories. Sociological theories explain the role of media with regard to social relationships and in economic and political contexts. Cultivation theory. George Gerbner's cultivation theory tries to draw an equation between symbolic structures, audience views, and behavior. The theory was advocated when television was new and much research was being done on it. Cultivation analysis explains that television constructs a new reality for the audiences which may have no bearing on the real world. TV propagates a new reality which is its own creation and is well accepted socially and culturally by the audiences, especially heavy viewers. The theory was based on 5 assumptions. Number 1. TV requires no additional resources like reading skills, money, or mobility. So TV content can be consumed by people of all age groups at any time of their choice. Number 2. TV at that time was the first medium to have shared public messages audiovisually, leading to the creation of a pseudo culture and mainstreaming a TV created understanding of society. Number 3. Such pseudo reality does not create attitudinal change, rather creates basic frames of reference which help audiences make decisions and judgments in life generally. Number 4. The TV created reality through its content aims at stabilizing the socio-cultural patterns. This is to maintain the power relationships in a society. So TV content is not directed to creating any revolution or major change in the existing social cultural setup. It only reinforces the already existing power relationships. Number 5. The observable and measurable changes propelled by this TV created perception of reality are relatively small due to a number of intervening variables. At times, the social reality constructed as a result of TV viewing may bring about alternate changes, like a person may start spending less time on TV. The active audience theory challenges the long-term cumulative effects of cultivation theory. In the contemporary world, where the audiences use multimedia to satisfy their information, entertainment, and various other needs, one cannot assume that exposure to any one medium can have a major effect on the audience's perception of reality. Nevertheless, the subtle effects of the theory cannot be negated. Agenda setting theory. The idea of agenda setting was first discussed in terms of election campaigns in 1972 by Max McCombs and Donald Shaw. According to this theory, the news media tell public what are the important issues of the day. For example, the news that appears first and in prime time is perceived to be more important by the audience. The media do not tell the audience what to think, but they do tell what to think about. So while media may make a diplomatic meet between several countries look important, they cannot have a say on whether the audience think it will do any good to the country's economy. The effects of agenda setting have also been established by research. The agenda setting effects are the maximum in first stories as they have the maximum audience attention and are uninterrupted and without distractions. So the placement of stories is important. Also, there is consistency in importance given to issues across different media. But powerful videos and images can reduce such effects on the audience's mind as they can emotionally or otherwise divert and absorb attention to the issue of presentation. The importance given to an issue by media may not be close to the real world issues. So what is important in media is not what is really important, but what is made important by forces and people in power. This shapes the social and political realities for common people. Also related to agenda setting is priming effect of media, which is generally used for news management. This is used more in terms of diverting attention from important issues in the public sphere, like a big military adventure or foreign affairs initiative. Uses and gratification theory. This is a limited effects theory which suggests that media are not supreme and audiences are not passive. The effects of media are limited to what the audiences allow them to be. So it is not what the media do to the audience, but what audiences do with the media and why do they use media. There are various needs that audiences look at satisfying, like information, entertainment, companionship and escape. While people are becoming more techno-friendly and real-time socialization has taken a backseat, the importance of media has increased in people's lives. One may wish to know the diplomatic efforts that a country is making with a neighboring country to bring back a fighter pilot who by mistake landed in the enemy territory. The need to be informed and updated. One may want to watch the latest film that one's peer group has been talking about. This is the need to be entertained and the need for social identity. After a stressful day at work, One may want to forget about it and watch a web series after dinner. This is the need for escape. The above examples indicate that the needs of the audience have a bearing on the socio-cultural context. The expectation from media is based on this context and type of media used. The content explains media influences, media choices, and media behaviors, while the type of media used will differ in content and presentation. Dependency theory. Propounded by Melvin DeFleur and Sandra Ball-Rockich in 1975, this theory has left behind the limited effects theory. According to this theory, the power of a mass medium is decided by how much the audiences are dependent on that medium. There were several assertions that the theory was made of. Number 1. The power or influence of mass media is composed of the relationship of the social system of which the media are a part, the media's role in that system, and the audience relationship to that media. Number 2. Whether media is able to exercise influence to alter the beliefs and behavior of the audiences is decided by the degree of dependence of audiences on that media. Number 3. In the modern society, the dependence on media is at multiple levels, like to understand the outside world, to find meaning and take meaning actions in a given social setup, and to find fantasy and escape. Number 4. The degree of dependence on mass media increases with A. Greater number of functions that we put media system to serve, and B. Where there is greater change and conflict in a society as the audience depends more on media to make opinions or take decisions. Let us understand this with an example. Whenever we hear of a major train accident or a cyclone or a terrorist attack or to look up at election results, we immediately use media to access the latest information, to analyze the available information, to make opinion and to act on it. Our decisions and actions depend on media use, and this dependency increases with the increase in use of media. Psychological theories. The work done on psychological aspects of communication was probably the most important in the times of post-World War I. The bearings of the human mind and the way media affect it, how communication influences the decisions and actions that an individual makes, and various nuances related to them were studied under this. Some of the psychological theories covered under it include attitudinal change theories, individual difference theory, persuasion and attitude, and social learning theory. Attitudinal change theory. Before you understand the processes of selectivity, it is important to understand the related concept of dissonance. The dissonance theory argued that when an individual confronts new information, one faces a mental discomfort. This could be due to the change in comfort zone of an individual, which may involve action, decision making, or may be purely situational. Carl Hovland and his team of researchers tested the effectiveness of this theory in 1949. The theory of attitudinal change suggested that in order to overcome dissonance, the human mind on a conscious or subconscious level makes use of 3 selective processes. These selective processes, which are a result of personal choices of the audiences, are explained below. Number 1. Selective exposure. This process explains that when an individual is confronted with a situation leading to dissonance, in order to reduce it, one exposes oneself or gives attention to only that information which is consistent with one's attitudes and beliefs. One's pre-existing experiences, perception of reality, preferences, interests, values and beliefs lead to formation of one's attitude. These are the decisive factors for selection of information one chooses to expose himself to. For example, If you are asked to attend a session in a seminar or a talk or lecture, you choose the subject depending on your area of interest. So you are selective about what you expose yourself to. Number 2, selective perception. After one has chosen what to expose one's mind to, all of the exposed information is not perceived meaningfully. The interpretation of messages will take place selectively on the basis of message consistency with one's pre-existing attitudes and beliefs. For example, in the talk or lecture that you attended, a number of points were made, but you did not think on each of them. You gave a further thought to a few select ideas. This is called selective perception. Number 3, selective retention. Of all that is perceived, the human mind is selective about what it retains for long, and the messages retained depend on how consistent they are with one's pre-existing attitudes and beliefs. For example, a few days after the talk or lecture, only a few ideas remain with you. The rest of the content you do not remember. This is called selective retention. Reinforcement theory. Joseph Clapper, in his book The Effects of Communication, 1960, explained the reinforcement theory with selective processes as the basis, focusing on limited effects of media. TV had not yet become a mass media then. According to this theory, mass media are not capable of bringing any change by them. It depends on what Clapper called a nexus of mediating factors and influences like social and religious factors, which primarily affect the audiences, and media play a supportive role. Whenever media have had direct effects, it has been either because the mediating factors have not been operational or when the mediating factors themselves have been impelling towards change. This theory stressed that there are minimal situations where media can have direct effects on the audience, and whether media can act as a contributory agent of bringing about change or are directly responsible for it would depend on communication, situation, or on different aspects of media and communication. For example, when as a result of a certain political ideology, there are communal riots at a place, media are expected to report with ethical restraint and without creating sensationalism. But media cannot be expected to calm the situation or take any fruitful action in such a situation. Another example can be when certain economic decision is taken, the politics of the country tries to gain mileage by playing on economic sentiments while gaining political mileage out of it. But media alone cannot change the way audiences respond to it or force a rational mindset. It only reports the predominant perceptions of the influential class of society, polity, and religion, which affects the audiences to varying degrees. Persuasion and attitude. You must be aware by now that mass media serves three primary purposes: information, education, and entertainment. There is a fourth purpose of the communication through mass media, which is persuasion. Persuasion is the process of influencing the perspective and thus outlook, and finally the decision of the audiences. While it uses information, its purpose moves beyond just informing. It attempts at an active decision making and implementation. 5 primary factors that play a key role in designing a message for the purpose of persuasion are: Number 1. Belief. It is a set of ideas pertaining to what one may think to be true or false. Beliefs are easier to change than attitudes. When one is confronted with situations that are juxtaposed to the reality one believes in, then one is more likely to amend one's belief. While some people believe that one political party has the benefit of a minority at heart, other group may believe the opposite, and there will be a few more that will realize the agenda behind it. Number 2. Value. Value is the merit, worth, or usefulness of something which is held personally by someone. It is what a person deems important. For someone, saving money on education might be important, while other would feel that one should spend maximum on it. Number 3. Motive. It refers to the aims or self-interests of a person in a situation. For example, while buying a gift, the customer's decision may change based on who one is gifting it to. Number 4. Attitude. Attitude is the mindset which is most difficult to change as it is formed as a result of constant reinforcement of a certain kind of behavior. For example, some may have a positive attitude towards a political party or technology or ever-changing fashion trends, while some may feel negatively about one or more of these. At all times, an attitude is backed by a strong reason for holding it. Number 5. Behavior. It is the action taken by people. It can be observed and is affected by all the above factors. While it is affected by media, it could be out of sync as well, due to other factors like peer pressure, climate, and budget, among others. Advertising works on this theory. While the beliefs, values, and motives are difficult to change, advertising aims to introduce conditions and later establish beliefs and values as the new norm. For example, Daag Achhe Hain is a very literal example where the perception of soiled clothes is being changed. The advertisers are encouraging mothers to encourage their kids to play, thus redefining the process of cleaning. The phrase becomes catchy and is aimed at changing the behavior of the audience, resulting in increasing the sales of the product. Theory of social learning. Albert Bandura in 1986 gave the social learning theory, also called the observational learning theory. According to this, much learning takes place in terms of an individual's social behavior and development and from what one observes and experiences in the environment. Much of this learned behavior was earlier picked from television alone. Bandura gave a sequence for such learning to take place: attention, retention, production, and motivation. One pays attention to media messages that are of interest to an individual. One tries to retain it by modeling or copying it, which may be through A. imitation, or B. identification. Imitated behavior is when a behavior observed in environment, that is including media, is copied exactly in personal life. For example, one tries to imitate the styles and way of speaking of one's favorite actor, or when crime occurs based on the storyline of a teleserial or movie is also an example of imitated behavior. Identified behavior is more symbolic or generalized, and though not exactly copied, yet presents a response that is related to what is observed in media. For example, men sporting a particular hairstyle or stubble and traditional mustaches are an identified behavior. The social learning theory later led to the emergence of social cognition theory. Critical and cultural theories. Critical and cultural theories look at the process of culture production critically. These theories analyze the social structures and practices that shape them. Culture, in terms of media terminology, refers to various products of media, which could include a photograph, language, a film, or an article. Marxist theories. Marxism is a broad ideology which in the essence is economic. Some of you with commerce or arts background might be aware of it. In a nutshell, it states that those who hold the means of production produce according to their needs and are known as bourgeois. The proletariat consists of the workers who toil to create the products and are still deprived of using them to their full potential. Translating to media scenario, The media messages are seen as the products and media channels as means of production. The elite who own the media channels are the current day bourgeoisie, and the audiences are the proletariat. Media and their messages constitute a part of the common culture, and their production is the process of cultural production. The theory works in two stages. First is media ownership. People who own the media channels will use media to serve their vested interests consciously or subconsciously. The popular is not always what the masses want, but rather what the media elites think the masses want. You may have heard that in the context of the current television news scenario in India, it is often debated and discussed that a channel is owned by a big business group or a minister or a political party, and as a result, it gives a particular angle to the news stories to popularize their ideology. Second is the audience interpretation. It is further dependent on modes of access and reach for the audience segment. Studying this helps in understanding who comprehends what and why. Another view came from Stuart Hall, famous for his theory of encoding and decoding. He argued that the media channels appear to reflect reality while they are actually constructing it. Besides, the mass media not only function in the interest of the owners of production means, but they are also a field of ideological struggle. Hall further explained the readings in three types. Dominant reading, by ones whose social context favors the preferred reading. Negotiated reading, by the ones who modulate the reading according to their social setup. Oppositional reading, by the ones whose social positions are in opposition with the reading. Critical theories. The Marxist theories gave rise to what was later accepted to be the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory. Most important philosophers associated with the Frankfurt School were Theodor Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, and Max Horkheimer. Later philosophers like Antonio Gramsci and Jürgen Habermas were also associated with the critical theories. Critical theories aim to critique and change the society rather than just understand or explore it, as is the case with the traditional theories. For this, critical theories are applied to many subjects of social sciences and humanities. Post-1960s, after the establishment of communication studies as a separate discipline, language, text and symbolism, they have been perceived as the foundation stone for studying humanities. So much so that Habermas described the critical social theories as a study of the field of communication. The theories aim at analyzing texts from the perspective of what is intended and by whom. What are the implications of representations, or rather misrepresentations, and how they in turn justify the ideology propagated through the texts. To put it simply, 1. The text is studied of intended meaning. 2. The meaning is further explored for representation of a contextual reality. 3. The contextual reality is then put vis-a-vis against the ideology the text generators aim to propagate. The critical theories surmise that mass media define the way we perceive the world and are a cultural industry. Antonio Gramsci used the term hegemony to describe the dominance of one social class over another, which manifested through the mass media messages. This shaped the worldview of the less dominant class and normalized what the media messages contained. Cultural studies. Media production is also the process of cultural production. From the Complan Boy to Sibaka Geetmala to Gajni haircuts to Instagram icons, each of these is a byproduct of the media messages and is a part of the process of culture production for the masses. Richard Hoggart used the term cultural studies for the first time in 1964 in UK. As the name implies, cultural studies are the branch dealing with the study of the media texts in the light of the cultural context it is arising from. The scholars of cultural studies strive to understand the culture and its forms, origins, and context. Embracing various methodological approaches and philosophies, cultural studies use hermeneutics, postmodernism, sociology, economics, and even anthropology to study culture and its production. Culture under this branch of study is not understood as a fixed entity but as a dynamic one. Cultural study researchers also probe the association of power with the emerging social phenomena such as gender, class, ethnicity, race, and national identity. Thus, many approaches, including the feminist theories, critical race theory, structuralism, and literary theories, lie under its gamut. The aim of cultural studies is to understand culture and its making and acceptance through the lens of power. The objective becomes not only to analyze the culture, the process of its formulation, but how it is positioned in the society as well. It strives to continuously evaluate the social practices and direct towards a political action. Culture studies also view consumption of culture as an active process. Scholars have opined that consumers also challenge the meanings of media contexts. The major contribution to this area comes from Stuart Hall and John Fiske. Meaning of text is also extremely flexible and dynamic. From TV programs to film scores to hairstyles to web page layouts, according to Roland Barthes, an acclaimed French semiotician, every text can be dissected and read. Political economy theory. The political economy theory is said to be suggested by Harold Innis in his book Empire and Communication. The book is further said to have inspired Marshall McLuhan to formulate his theories. The theory is a popular branch in communication studies which discusses the power relations that make the process of communication through mass media possible. Further, the political economy theory also studies the social relationships within the mass media systems, the producers, the distributors, and the consumers. It also focuses on the role of the state and the involvement of technological developments. The focus areas of the theory are 1. Media ownership. In today's concentrated media ownership, lack of diversity in contents has become an issue of concern. Large media conglomerates tilt the quality of content and thus raise the issues of inclusion in media participation. Peripheral processes. From advertising to social media services to events, these processes also affect the content to some extent. When producers are the advertisers as well, their influence on content becomes obvious. Number 3. Government policies. Lastly, the state policies on production, distribution, and consumption of content also affect the operation of the industry at large. This theory finds greater applicability in few segments of media when compared with others. For instance, in journalism, a concentrated ownership would induce bias in reporting. A lot of advertorials and PR material makes up for what is supposed to be news. With an understanding of the economics behind the media ownership patterns, one can trace this bias and make a negotiated reading of the text. Media society theories. Technological determinism. Believed to be first used by Thorstein Veblen in early 20th century, this theory is most famously worked upon by Marshall McLuhan. The theory aims to highlight that the principal element in deciding the course of social change is technology. In media as well, The technological advancement of a society defines its media consumption and in the process the media texts as well. The theory further claims that with the widespread availability of technology, globalization is inevitable. McLuhan has given many proclamations, out of which the two most distinct are: medium is the message and the world is a global village. While the first one hints at technology affecting the content creation on media platforms, the second hints at massive globalization with introduction of technology. The theory undermines the growth of culture or ownership patterns on content creation, but focuses on the availability and use of technology in a given society. This practically means that with mass production comes mass access and consumption. Without the invention of printing press, there would be no mass consumption of books and neither would the literacy level of the society increase. The theory can be further divided into hard determinism and soft determinism. Hard determinism. This branch believes that technology is independent from social concerns. Humans align themselves in accordance with technology and we do not hold much choice in the manner how and why. A social system whose structure allows a technology to grow will imbibe its features and thus become more advanced than a structure which does not. Soft determinism. This branch believes in greater flexibility. It opines that technology could be the guiding force in human evolution, but it is not the only factor. Also, cultures and traditions will vary how the technology is adapted and applied in a society. Media and public sphere. The concept of public sphere was formulated sometime in the 18th century. It is basically a space where people come together to discuss social problems without any hierarchy. The discussion leads to suggesting a political action. The discussion comprises of all perspectives from various sections of society. Jürgen Habermas theorized this space in 1991 as a space where public meets private. He pointed out few features of this space. Number 1. Open to all citizens. 2. All citizens act on their own behalf and do not represent political or business interests. 3. No hierarchy in the citizens. 4. Discussion on social issues. 5. Formation of public opinion. 6. Citizen involvement in policy making at governmental level. Habermas considers state power as public power as it is established through the agency of elections. He presses on the need of public spheres to mediate between the state and the society as it gives a platform for discussion and opinion formation for the public. Many physical spaces in the past have served as the public spheres, for instance, Britain's coffee houses and France's salons. With the rise of new media, various opinions from scholars across the world have emerged considering web as a public sphere. Internet allows anyone and everyone to voice their opinion on social media platforms. As of now, when there are online influencers to shape the consumer opinion for various brands, the discussions happening online are certainly helping a lot of citizens in the opinion formation. Today, the web is also emerging as the primary information gathering medium, and at times these opinions and discussion boards also spread misinformation among the masses. Audience theories. In the process of creating and disseminating media messages, discussing the role of audience is imperative. Who is the audience? How are they engaging with the media messages? What messages are being preferred over others? The term audience theory refers to any theory which explores the relationship between the audience and the media text. It includes A. Hypodermic needle model, where the text is received without negotiation and accepted by the receiver, just like a needle penetrates the skin and no resistance can be offered. So do media messages affect the audience. This was the first theory that tried to explain the effect of media messages on the audience. B. Two-step flow. This theory talks about the opinion leaders, who usually are people with high media literacy, who filter and diffuse the media content to the masses. In this case, the power does not solely lie with the media, but also with the opinion leaders in the society up to some extent. C. Reception theory. This theory emphasizes the process of understanding of texts. Underlining the heterogeneous cultural background of the people constituting the audience, this theory propounds that the meaning derived of a text will differ for all individuals. D. Active audience theory. A study by Zimmerman and Boyer revealed that an audience also plays an active role in the production of media messages. In times of social media and user-generated content on sites like YouTube, this theory does not need any further examples. Feminist media theories. Feminist theories are an umbrella term for a group of theories that explore the definition and representation of gender or concepts related to gender. The theorists of this branch argue that almost all aspects of life can be deciphered in relation to gender. They also opine that gender defines the division of power and responsibilities in the society. The feminist theorists not only work to document the inequality but also to suggest and shift the balance to equilibrium. Feminism has not remained as a mere bunch of theories but has manifested itself as a social movement in recent times. While largely unorganized, 3 different versions have emerged prominently. Number 1. Liberal feminism. It has been the foundation of the movement, propagating that women have been deprived of equal rights and have been oppressed as a group in the public sphere. 2. Radical feminism. It believes that giving equal social rights won't help until we change our social structures. Rights are mere extensions to regularize what the society believes to be just. Without changing the social fabric, many women will not even be able to avail the rights. Number 3. Marxist feminism. The theorists belonging to this branch believe that the means of production have always lied with men, thus depriving women of social equality. Feminist theorists largely study the following. Number 1. Representation of gender in media texts. While portrayal of women has been a subject of constant debate, at times men also suffer from the rigid rules of patriarchy. This stems from the discussion that gender is not merely polar but fluid. One could be a male and yet not conform to the societal regulations for the male gender completely. Number 2. Production of media texts. How many filmmakers are female? How do their stories differ from stories told by the male filmmakers? When the means of production lie in the hands of the other, how does the product change? Number 3. Reading of the text. What are the different ways of consumption of media texts based on the consumer's gender? Why does a man like watching action movies more than a woman? Let us sum up. In this unit, we learnt about what is implied by different theories of mass communication, their classification in terms of sociological, psychological, critical and cultural and media society theories, and how each of them explains different aspects of media effects in the socio-cultural context. The sociological theories section discuss the varying degrees of effects media has on audience and the relationship that an individual builds with the media. The psychological theories discussed how people engage with media on a mental level, sometimes consciously and sometimes subconsciously. The critical and cultural theory section discussed the intervention of Marxism in media theories and how culture is influenced by it. The last section of the unit explored the media society equation with technological intervention and expanding of public sphere. This brings us to the end of Unit 3. If you found this video to be helpful, please do like, share and subscribe, and do give your feedback in the comment section below. Thank you.